Okay, we are back to talk about Elaine Thompson-Herah. Very quick video to break down the fact that she just ran her first 200-meter race since April of 2023. Literally almost 3 years since the last time she's run a 200, and she just dropped a 22.61 second time again in the 200. This was down at Velocity Fest 18 in Jamaica, in Kingston, at the National Stadium. Go in the link in the description for the full race video and for the results. Unfortunately, can't play the video here on the screen. I just did a live stream, so check that out. I was kind of breaking things down, but I just want to dive in a little bit and talk about this individual race, how Elaine's 2026 season has kind of been playing out so far and what we might expect going forward. And also kind of the overall landscape a little bit relative to some other women who have run the 200 for Jamaica, not only this year, but in the past couple years as well. So first off, Elaine Thompson-Herah, 22.61 seconds for the 200. As I said, this is her first 200 since April 2023 when she had run the 200 early in the season. We know she did, suffer some injuries, but kind of picked things back up at the end of the season. So I think this bodes very, very well for Elaine, considering what she's already kind of done throughout the year in the 60s, which we'll talk about in a second, but also based on how she executed the race. So as I said, go into the description where you could check out the actual race video, but she actually looked like the Elaine Thompson-Herah that I think many of us know in terms of her form and execution. Now, I'm not talking about, the fast times and all that. That's a whole different discussion that we're not, at yet. But when you're talking about how she executed going down the home straight in that last 100, of course, when you're talking about the end of a 200, you got to have that speed endurance. You got to have that strength. And we know Elaine Thompson-Herah has been able to show that, throughout the years in various races she's had. She isn't, the third fastest all time with 21.53 for no reason. But she did look slightly labored as she was kind of getting closer to the finish line, as if she's almost like reaching for the line and, trying to get there, trying to hold her form, which I think does indicate that, she is maybe lacking a little bit of fitness or, some of that speed and speed endurance that, she's had in the past, but maybe kind of crept up over the past, couple years of her not fully being able to train and, compete and do all the work to the best of her ability due to, various injury setbacks and surgery, potential surgery and different things like that. So definitely looked a little bit labored in the last 100, but her form was good. She was really executing. And I've said this in the past where I believe that Elaine Thompson-Herah has some of the best technical form of any sprinter in history, right? All relative, but I look at Elaine Thompson-Herah, I look at Florence Griffith-Joyner, I look at Asafa Powell. Those are some athletes who, when I say, okay, you are able to execute a 100-meter race or whatever it is, those are some of the athletes who I think, really I look at as having some good form. Elaine was kind of displaying that here in the 200. Again, her first 200 in almost 3 years down in Jamaica. Very, very impressed with her performance. And I think this does bode well for what we're going to see from her in 2026. Now, for some context, she's already kicked off her 2026 season, opening up running the 60 meters on 2 different occasions. She ran 7.24 seconds outdoors on February 14th. Then a week later, she ran 7.20 seconds in the 60 meters. Both of those were into headwinds. As many of y'all know, I don't really I take outdoor 60s with a grain of salt, especially when comparing to indoor 60s and what they really mean. But relative to what she's done in the past and relative to, where she was coming from in terms of almost a full 2 years off from competition in any capacity, various injury setbacks, as I said, potential surgery or something along those lines, I think those boded very well and were a good indicator of what, she might be able to do outdoors in the 100. Now, I also said I wasn't sure if she was going to run a 200. I actually didn't think she would run a 200 and would solely focus on the 100, especially coming back from these, potential career-ending injuries. But to see her jump into this 200 and to see her run 22.6, which is a relatively strong performance. On the surface, 22.6 doesn't look, that fast. But when you compare it with all that context, I think this is a pretty strong performance. And that shows me that she's obviously much stronger than, I may have initially thought. Obviously, I had no, information because nobody had information in terms of where she's been at. And it does show that she is in a much better place going forward throughout the rest of 2026. Obviously, she hasn't opened up in the 100 yet, so that's still a question mark on what she might be capable of. As you know, many people have been speculating in terms of, okay, maybe she could run, 10.9, maybe she could run 10.8, maybe she could run 10.7, and I think all of those are in the realm of what she's capable of. But I think this 200 just adds another data point and another positive data point that she's probably trending closer and closer into that 10.8 range by the end of this year, if not faster. Right? Again, I'm not making any predictions. I'm personally going to be a little more conservative because Elaine, obviously, as years go on, it's never getting easier to become faster. And she, of course, is injury prone. So she looks healthy. I'm hoping that she remains healthy. Once that does happen, I think we're looking at, something that will be looking very, very good in terms of times in the 100. Now, on top of that, before I look at like the 200 overall for Jamaica, Elaine Thompson-Herah is the defending Commonwealth Games champion in both the 100 and the 200. From 2022 at the Commonwealth Games, I think it was in Birmingham, she won the gold in the 100, ahead of, I think there was Julian Alfred won silver, Daryl Nita won the bronze medal. In the 200, she won ahead of, I think, Mujinga Kumbunji and Daryl Nita. Actually, I'm sorry, not Mujinga Kumbunji, that's Euros. But Daryl Nita was in that race. Someone cross-check me or fact-check me on who actually got a medal in the 200 as well. But my question is, will she actually attempt to qualify to the Commonwealth Games in both the 100 and the 200? Now, the 100 is going to be much tougher because that field between the Clayton twins, between Brianna Liston, who we just saw, do very well indoors, maybe Sharika Jackson, you have Jonelle Smith, you have Alana Reed, like so many women across the board who are very, very competitive in the 100 that it makes it a little tougher for her to qualify there. Now, again, based on how she's trending, who knows what she might be capable of. So that's one thing to take into consideration. The other thing is the 200. Is she looking to actually double? And if she does do the 100 and the 200, will she be able to actually manage that? Again, coming off of the injuries, coming off time away, going directly into a championship double. Now, this isn't Olympics or World Championships, so the quality of the overall field is maybe not as deep and it won't be as competitive. But taking on that load of doing multiple rounds in the 100 and the 200 at the Commonwealth Games, that's not easy. So again, only Elaine and her coach and her team actually know what she's capable of and what her true goals are. In an interview after her first race, she did kind of note that she has goals on what she wants to achieve in September this year. So we know the Ultimate Championships are there, but I don't know if that's like a time goal that she had or whatever it may be. The Commonwealth Games are in August, so maybe she's not targeting that. Who knows? But TBD on, actually finding that out. But I think I am very impressed, at least with this individual 200-meter performance, and that bodes well, for her 100. Again, I really liked her execution. I can see in the race video in that last 100 meters, kind of the last, 75 meters, really executing with that classic Elaine form, the form that I would kind of like show to other athletes to be like, okay, this is kind of like how you should be as a sprinter in a sense. Now, the other thing I did want to take a look at is Jamaican women in the 200, because they have been, I guess it's been a little up and down when talking about Jamaican women in the 200 over the past few years. Now, we know that Sharika Jackson has been, the mainstay in the event, since, dating all the way back to 2021, technically, at the Olympic Games, even though she didn't make that final. But 2022, 2023, right? World champion, both occasions, second fastest all time, 21.4. Like, she's been able to actually hold things down. But as the years have gone on, it's gotten a little tricky in terms of the depth across the board for Jamaica in the 200. And I think last year was really representative of how it's a little be able to break through. It's a little tough for Jamaica in the women's 200. Now, for context, Sharika Jackson, last year, she did run 21 seconds at the World Championships in Japan in the semifinals, 21.99, and then she eventually dropped back to 22, but she got the bronze medal at the World Championships. But then she had a wild card to the World Champs. The other women behind her really weren't looking great in terms of the quality in the 200 across the board. You had Ashanti Moore, who was able to win Jamaican National Championships, and she ran 22.31 seconds last year as well. But that's not, the 22 low or the 21 seconds that would be necessary to truly be competitive, when talking about, women on the global stage. Even behind her at the Jamaican National Championships, we saw Gabrielle Matthews, who was able to get second place. We saw McGregor, who was able to get third place. Both of them running 22.8. I know Gabrielle Matthews this year indoors, she already ran 22.5 seconds. So, she's looking to be in some good form. But once again, that depth does start to look a little tricky. Dejanay Oakley, she's run 22.4 seconds last year, but she's a 400-meter runner. You look at someone like Elaine Thompson-Herah. Shout out to Leighton Levy. I think he had noted that Elaine might be potentially retiring from his understanding. I'll link his video in the description for you to check that out. That's a question mark as well, right? You had Naisha Berger, who last year did run 22.39 while she was in the NCAA. Outdoors, she did get injured, but she was, at the Olympic Games in 2024, along with Lene Teva-Thomas. Those two were, along with Sharika, kind of the next generation of 200-meter sprinters. Questionable in terms of that form. Naisha Berger is still very young, but, we'll see what she's able to do. So all that, you have Brianna Williams, who's in the potential conversation, but, I think she just moved back down to train with Otto Bolden in Florida, so she's been having up and downs. At this same meet, at the Velocity Fest in Kingston, the Clayton twins, they ran, I think 23 seconds. I think Tina was 23.1. Tia was like 23.3. So they're not really in that 200-meter conversation. And obviously there's a bunch of other women, we should definitely keep a lookout for as well. But I say all this to say that the 200-meter path for Elaine Thompson-Herah in Jamaica to potentially get to that Commonwealth Games actually looks like it might be slightly easier than the 100 meters as it stands right now. Now, again, I don't know what like Jamaica's selection process is. Commonwealth Games doesn't have like a wild card system where the previous winner has an automatic bid. But Elaine Thompson-Herah getting to the Commonwealth Games to potentially either defend her double or at least contend for a gold medal in either event might be in the 200 meters if the 100 is as competitive as it looks to be. But I still have the question on, is running a full season of the 200 what she wants to do and what she's capable of doing in terms of like her body holding up and all that? Or does she continue to take things a little bit easier? Maybe this 200 was just, an opener to, just like test the waters to build that strength as a target for the 100 meters for the rest of the season so that she can build things up for 2027 at the World Championships, for 2028 at the Olympic Games. That is definitely the ultimate goal for Elaine Thompson-Herah. So again, all of that to say, summary, Elaine Thompson-Herah, first 200 meters in almost 3 years. She runs 22.61 down in Kingston, Jamaica. I think she looked very good in terms of her execution and her form throughout the race and really does bode well for what she might be capable of in the 100. But when we're looking forward in the rest of the 2026 season, still a question on what her ultimate goals are. Is she going to be focused in on the 100? Was this 200 just an opener to build that early season strength? Or is she looking to do the 100 and the 200 and potentially target the Commonwealth Games to defend her gold medals, from 2022 this year, once again in Great Britain? So I don't know, just some initial reactions. Again, in the description, check out the link for the video of the actual race. Check out the link for the results. And then also check out Leighton Levy. I put his video in the description talking about Lene Teva-Thomas and some other athletes as well. So appreciate y'all. Let me know what y'all think. Thanks, y'all.